Hello again. How are you? Everything okay? Good morning. Just a second. All right. Welcome to program 1057. I want to I want to start the story about Nigel Perkins and solving a crime. Here we have Nigel with the London police. Now, as you know, Nigel Perkins owns a private detective agency that works almost exclusively with insurance companies. And they investigate suspicious claims, siniestros, que tiene que pagar la aseguradora, pero sobre incidentes sospechosos. All right. And in this case, a friend of Nigel's, died about 6 months ago. A friend of Nigel Perkins died about 6 months ago of a heart attack. A heart attack. His wife, who was 32 years old, 30 years younger, and an ex-modelo. She was an ex-model. She received $7 million from the insurance company because of a life insurance policy. A life insurance policy. Póliza de seguros de vida, seguro de vida. 7 millones a la pobre esposa. All right. 7 million. Now, the insurance company, of course, didn't enjoy paying $7 million to this woman, but the insurance policy. But at the same time, so they paid her the proceeds. Se dice proceed, lo que procede, o sea, la indemnización. Lo que procede de la póliza, the proceeds from the policy. But at the same time, they contacted Nigel's company, asking them to investigate this situation. And because Nigel personally knew the man, he decided to get personally involved. So he participated directly in the investigation. All right. And they found proof. They found evidence of a crime. Nigel Perkins has achieved another success. His company has just presented proof of a crime. Prueba, la prueba de, o las pruebas de. También se dice mucha evidencia, evidence. 3 months ago, hace 3 months ago, a large insurance company asked Nigel's firm to investigate the death of a 62-year-old man. The man had died of a heart attack in strange circumstances. Extrañas circunstancias. Strange circumstances. Que cierres la boca con M, por favor. Circunstancias. Circumstances. Circum. Oh, sí, señor. Yes, sir. Circumstances. So the man had died of a heart attack 3 months ago in strange circumstances. His wife, a 32-year-old ex-model, had received $7 million from the insurance company. It's a lot of money. The man who died, el hombre quien murió, no, también se puede decir the man that died, el hombre quien murió. The man who died had been, had been a friend of Nigel's, and Nigel had personally supervised the investigation of the case. Resulta que, ¿quieres saber lo que pasó? Resulta que, claro que, pues resulta que, it turns out that, it turns out It turns out that the wife knew her husband suffered from poor blood circulation. Okay. La circulación sanguínea. La esposa sabía que tenía pobre o mala circulación sanguínea. The wife knew, sabía, de antemano. She knew that her husband suffered from poor blood circulation. Over a period of 5 months, a lo largo de 5 meses, un periodo de 5 meses, over a period of 5 months, she went to 9 different farmacias, to fill a prescription for hemophiliacs, to fill a prescription. Prescription es receta médica. Prescripción. Pero usamos el verbo to fill como llenar. Ay, tengo que llenar esta prescripción. Así lo decimos, tengo que ir al farmacio para esta receta. In the United States and in Great Britain, it's more traditional. El boticario. In Spain, el farmacéutico despacha. No, it's como una tienda. It's like that, all right? You show them, they look at it, they go back, bring you a package or a bottle or something. But in the States, no. In the US, you need to wait 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes sometimes, while the pharmacist prepares the receta magistral, o sea, mezclando y con pestillo y almirez, ¿no? Y estas cosas, yeah, they make it. Y lo ponen en cápsulas. Yeah, it's interesting. And if you go to an American pharmacy, there are always chairs, because you have to wait. You have to wait. And then they give you a little frasco, a little plastic, with the instructions. Take before breakfast and before dinner. That's the only information you have. You don't have a prospecto de 80 páginas, like here, It's interesting. It's an interesting philosophy. I don't know if I agree or not. But there's a secret, apparently, it seems a secret between the doctor and the pharmacist. And the patient doesn't know. The doctor writes a prescription. Usually it's impossible to read it. And the pharmacist looks at it, spends 10 minutes preparing something, creates capsules, lozenges, puts them into a little, and a little pegatina con the dosificación, and that's it. You have nothing else. You don't know the side effects. Side effects are efectos, decimos efectos laterales, no secundarios. You don't know the side effects. You don't know the chemical composition. You don't know anything. That's in the United States. It's strange. For prescription drugs. For over-the-counter drugs, no. OTC, over-the-counter. Counter es el mostrador. Over-the-counter, literalmente sobre el mostrador. Okay. Son medicamentos que no requieren receta. That's OTC, over-the-counter. There are 2 different businesses. Prescription drugs, a lot of money, and over-the-counter drugs. Aspirin, aspirina is an OTC, over-the-counter drugs. But it's quite interesting, the difference. I prefer it here. It's simpler. You don't have to wait. But you have these, they have these big instructions, my God. It has about 8,000 palabras. You can read. Do you read the instructions? Yeah? You don't. She doesn't read the instructions. She gives Victor medicine and doesn't receive the instruction? All right. You need to be careful sometimes. There are some drugs. La palabra droga en inglés se usa tanto para fármacos normales como para la droga ilegal. We say drug. A drugstore, the drugs. The Food and Drug Administration. You need to be a little bit careful because certain medications or certain prescriptions have a very similar name. So you need to be careful sometimes. And the pharmacist can make a mistake because of the similarity of the name. All right, but in any case, so Nigel's firm, over a period of 5 months, the wife went to 9 different pharmacies to fill a prescription for hemophiliacs. Now, remember, her husband suffered bad blood circulation. Okay. A hemophiliac suffers not the opposite. No, a hemophiliac has normal blood circulation. The problem is if there's a cut and it's bleeding, it doesn't coagulate. And so they can die, bleed to death. You can bleed to death, a hemophiliac. It's very dangerous. And so hemophiliac needs to be extremely careful. So medication for a hemophiliac is to thicken the blood. Espesar la sangre, to thicken the blood. And that's the opposite of what a person with bad circulation needs. So she was buying a type of medication that is just the opposite of what her husband needed and could provoke a heart attack. All right. The drug she bought made her husband's blood circulation even worse. And eventually, he died. So over a 9-month period, he was taking the wrong medication. He was taking a blood thickener. All right. And eventually he died. Eventually significa al final. No significa eventualmente. Es un amigo falso. And eventually, he died. Yes. Nigel's firm investigated the woman. First, they investigated the woman. Este exponerlo. First, they discovered that she was having an affair with a doctor. Okay. She was having an affair. They discovered that she was having an affair with a doctor. Second, they went through at least 1 ton of garbage in the basement of the building where she lived. In the building where she lived, in London, the garbage, the trash, the rubbish, la basura, no se saca a la calle cada día. It's taken to the basement in Grandes there, and every 3 days they take it out. So they went in and they looked through the garbage in the basement of the building where they lived. Yes. And after 10 days, they found a prescription in the garbage for the medicine in question. La medicina esta. The medicine in question. They found the name of the same doctor on the prescription that she was having an affair with. And then they contacted the distributors of the medicine. Finally, they visited 27 pharmacies in the general area where the woman lived. Employees in 4 different pharmacies recognized her from a photo, from a photograph. At that point, Nigel's firm contacted the police. The woman was called in for interrogation. The police called her into the police station, comisaría, for interrogation. But she denied everything. Denegaba, o sea, no. She didn't negaba todo. She denied. Se dice denegar en inglés. She denied everything. Yes. However, when the police contacted the doctor, he confessed to the crime. Yes. Now he and the ex-model are in prison, awaiting trial, esperando juicio. And 6 of the $7 million have been recovered. Okay. Final casi feliz. Falta $1 millón y el pobre está muerto. Poor guy's dead. All right. But the 2 bad guys, the doctor and the woman, are in jail. They're in prison, awaiting trial. Awaiting trial. How much time do I have left? We have plenty of time. Okay. I want to return to the past conditional from yesterday. Yes. If Isabella of Castile hadn't liked Ferdinand, they wouldn't have gotten married. And if they hadn't gotten married, Ferdinand and Isabella, if they hadn't gotten married, Castile and Aragon would not have united into one nation or one country. Yes. If Christopher Columbus hadn't lived on the island of Madeira, he wouldn't have known about the route to America. Christopher Columbus was living on a very small island, tiny, a very, very small island, next to Madeira, a Portuguese island. And there, a shipwrecked man, naufrago, came, and he told, before he died, he told Christopher Columbus that he had come back from a different world, and he told him the route. And so Christopher Columbus knew that there was something across the Atlantic Ocean. El mar tenebroso se llamaba. No se llamaba Atlántico. El mar de las tinieblas o el mar tenebroso. Okay. People were afraid to go. And so Christopher Columbus decided to present the idea and to look for financing, for money, for financing, first to the King of Portugal, and then to Ferdinand and Isabella in Spain. Now, if the King of Portugal had accepted the offer, and if Portugal had financed the expedition, the United States and, well, all of the Americas would have been discovered by Portugal. And history would have been different. But the King of Portugal rejected Christopher Columbus. So Columbus went to Granada during the siege of Granada, the Sitio de Granada, 10 years before, in 1482. And he presented the idea. And Isabella was interested, but they postponed the decision. And finally, for 10 years. But in the end, Christopher Columbus decided to go to France and to England. And when Ferdinand and Isabella got the news, they decided to call him back. If he hadn't threatened to go to France and England, Ferdinand and Isabella might not have called him back, but they did. And then they gave him 3 ships, the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. All right. And he crossed the ocean. Now, if the ships had sunk along the way, he wouldn't have discovered the New World. And if Columbus hadn't discovered the New World, how many years would have passed before somebody else would have discovered it? Estoy usando el pasado condicional. Si Colón hubiera muerto en la travesía, ¿cuántos años más habría tardado Europa en darse cuenta de que había un continente entero ahí? If Columbus had died along the way, and if the 3 ships had sunk, how long would the Europeans have taken How long would it have taken Europe to realize that there was a continent straight to the west between Europe and the Far East? I think it would have taken at least 30 or 40 more years. If Columbus had never returned, if Christopher Columbus and his ships and his men had never returned to Spain or to Europe, I think Europe would have needed another 30 or 40 years to finally sail straight to the west. It's interesting, but in any case, that's the case. Now, Portugal, the War of Independence in Spain took place between 1808 and 1814. And it took place because Napoleon occupied Spain. If Napoleon hadn't occupied Spain, the Spanish wouldn't have risen up against Napoleon, and the Peninsular War would not have started. Se dice en inglés la guerra peninsular, en referencia a la guerra de independencia napoleónica. All right. The Peninsular War, because Portugal was included in this war, not only Spain. So, if Napoleon had not occupied Spain with his troops, the Spanish wouldn't have risen up against Napoleon. However, he occupied Spain. Why did he occupy Spain? Well, there were two reasons, basically. I think, in my opinion, there were two reasons. Number one, he needed to cross Spain to invade Portugal. Napoleon wanted to punish Portugal because Portugal continued to trade with Great Britain. And Napoleon Bonaparte had prohibited Europe to trade with Great Britain. To trade is comerciar, comercio exterior. Y Portugal comerciaba con la pérfida Albión, Inglaterra. Yeah, they were trading. And so Napoleon decided to punish Portugal. Yeah, but in order to reach Portugal, he needed to cross Spain. So he asked permission, or informed that he was going to cross Spain. And Godoy and Felipe IV, Carlos IV, perdón. Charles IV gave him permission to cross. But he took advantage of this opportunity to occupy. Because the second reason was Napoleon didn't have any respect for the Spanish monarchy and for Godoy, the prime minister. He didn't have any respect for them. And so he removed the monarchy to Bayonne in France, and placed his own troops in Madrid and Barcelona, in different places. Yes. And so basically he occupied. If he hadn't decided to punish Portugal, he probably wouldn't have occupied Spain. If Portugal hadn't started trading, or if Portugal hadn't continued trading with Great Britain, Napoleon wouldn't have tried to punish Portugal. So there are many things using the past conditional. But then Napoleon made many mistakes in Spain. If he hadn't made so many mistakes, his occupation of Spain would have been successful. Maybe. Okay, who knows? Using the past conditional. I came here this morning to do this class because I didn't have a fever when I woke up. If I had had a fever when I woke up, I wouldn't have come here. I would have called Marta and said, look, tengo fiebre. And I would have called her. If I had had a fever this morning when I woke up, well, it depends on the fever. If the fever had been, I don't know, 38, 37.5, I would have come anyway. But if the fever had been 39 earlier this morning, I wouldn't have come. I would have called her, and I would have canceled the recordings for today, and I would have stayed at home, and I would have gone back to bed, and I would have taken aspirin and I would have drunk a lot of water, etc. Yes. And if I had overslept this morning, I would have called her as well. I wouldn't have called her. I would have sent a text message. If I had overslept this morning. To oversleep is se me hubieran quedado pegado las sábanas. If I had overslept, sobredormido, literalmente, oversleep, sobredormido. If I had overslept this morning, I would have sent her a text saying, llego tarde. I'll be late. Estaré tarde, decimos en inglés. Estaré tarde. I'll be late. That's what would have happened. Okay, expressions. How much time? Not much, eh? There's no time. We are running out of time. We are running out of time. Yes. So, I'll come back tomorrow with expressions. Está muy bien la primera además. See you tomorrow.